This video is over Unit 8 4.0 practice, questions 5 and 6. So these questions are very similar to the ones that we did in class, where we were solving radical equations. You have to isolate a radical, but since there's two of them in this problem, you can only choose one to isolate. So I'm just going to leave it as is since one of them is already isolated, and I'm going to undo that square root. So to undo the square root, we're going to square both sides. Okay, and so that cancels out the square root over here, so we just have x plus 2. But then on this side, it kind of creates a little bit of a nasty problem. So when we square that, it means that we have 2 minus square root of x times 2 minus square root of x. So we actually have to FOIL that out. So we have to do 2 times 4, 2 times negative square root of x, negative root x times 2, and negative root x times negative root x, which is positive x. So then we're going to add up our like terms on that right side. And I'm going to get everything, I'm going to move everything to one side. We see here that we have an x on each side, so that's going to cancel out. I'm going to go ahead and move my 2 over, subtract this 2, so I have 2 minus 4 root x equals 0. That turns out to be kind of a silly move, but that's okay. So I'm going to subtract 2 on both sides because I'm trying to isolate this other radical now. Divide by negative 4. So I have square root of x equals positive 2 over 4, positive 1/2. Now that this radical is isolated, I have to square both sides, and I get x equals 1/4. Okay, so now that I've gotten my solution, x equals 1/4, I have to check to make sure it actually works. So I'm going to plug it into the original equation. So everywhere I see an x, I'm plugging in 1/4. I want to know, does this work? So I end up with 1/4 plus 2, which is 9/4. Square root of 9/4. Does that equal 2 minus the square root of 1/4, which is 1/2? So on this side, square root of 9/4 is 3/2. So just square the top or square root of the top and bottom. 2 minus 1/2 is also 3/2. So yes, they work. So x equals 1/4 would be our solution. So this is a very similar type of problem. We are going to isolate one of our radicals, which this one already is, and then we're going to undo it by squaring both sides of the equation. So I have 2x plus 5 equals, and then I have to square this. So I'm going to go ahead and FOIL that out. So square root of x plus 2 times square root of x plus 2, that just cancels out that square root. So I just end up with x plus 2. Square root of x plus 2 times 1 is just square root of x plus 2. 1 times square root of x plus 2 is square root of x plus 2. And then 1 times 1 is 1. And then I'm going to add up those like terms. So I get x plus 3 plus 2 square root of x plus 2. Now I'm trying to isolate my radical, so I'm going to go ahead and move everything else to the other side. I'm going to subtract x, subtract 3, and then divide by 2. So here is, this presents another problem. These are kind of tough problems because now our radical is isolated, so we are going to square both sides, but then we have to square this thing on the left that really isn't exactly something easy to square. And so to square it, we're going to have to multiply it all back out. So I'm going to go to a new slide to do that. Okay, so we are squaring both sides here. So to square this, I am going to square both the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to multiply the top, or I'm just going to multiply it times itself. And on this right side, that square root cancels out. So the bottom over here is just going to be 4. And on top, I'm going to have to do x times x, x times 2, 2 times x, 2 times 2. And add up all my like terms. This is just a huge problem here. So just bear with me. We're almost to the point where we can start solving it. So this 4 in the denominator is kind of getting in my way. I don't really like it there. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 4 just to get rid of it. So when I do that, I have to multiply both parts on this side. So I have x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 4x plus 8. So I ran out of room there. So I'm just going to put it down here and then I'll rewrite it. Let's move everything to one side of the equation so that we can actually solve this thing, since it's a quadratic, and we know that when solving quadratics we have to have everything on one side of the equation. So I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. That's going to cancel out. And then I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. That's going to give me negative 4. So I have x squared minus 4 equals 0. Now I know that when I'm solving a quadratic, there's lots of methods I can use. I can use quadratic formula. I can just solve for x if there's no other term with x in it. I can complete the square. I can use quadratic formula. There's lots of stuff there. Since this x squared is the only x term, I'm just going to get x by itself. I'm just going to solve. X squared equals 4, square root both sides, so x equals plus or minus 2. So after all that work, which you'll probably have to rewatch that process a couple of times to see that, but after all that work, those are our two solutions. But we're still not done because we have to check those two solutions. Okay, so now we're ready to check this. So we're going to plug in positive 2 and negative 2 into these. So this first one, let's plug in 2. Remember, I put that question mark over because I don't know if it's going to work or not. That's what we're checking. So left side, 2 times 2 plus 5 is 9. Square root of 4 plus 1. So 3 equals 2 plus 1. So yes, that works. So now let's check negative 2. Ran out of room again, sorry about that. So 2 times negative 2 is negative 4 plus 5 is 1. So I have square root of 1. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0 plus 1. And so 1 does equal 1, so they both work. So our solutions are plus and minus 2. Like I said, you're probably going to have to watch that last problem a couple of times. There's a lot of stuff going on there. It's a long process, and I realize that. So watch it a couple times. If you have more questions, let us know.